Hi, good to meet you all. My name is Heer Singh. I am the Gen Z director for Team Kennedy, and I will be your host for the core media team today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Clerkin, and I'm 50% of the leadership of National Students for Kennedy, and I live in Massachusetts, right in the Boston area.
Hi, everyone. I am Emma Post. I am the other 50% of the leadership of the team, and so happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brody Line. I am the Media and Communications Director here at Students for Kennedy, and I am also very happy to be here.
Hey guys, my name is Christian DePriest. I'm Chief of Staff for Students for Kennedy. Really happy to see you all here. Also, Connor Harsh, not here right now. He's our Director of Recruitment for Students for Kennedy.
And I'm Jacob Winter. I'm the event coordinator for Students for Kennedy. And as everyone else pointed out, I'm also excited to be here.
Okay, perfect. Welcome, everyone. So just tell me a little bit about your political experience and why you were interested in joining Team Kennedy and why you devote so much of your daily lives to this organization.
So I have a very roundabout, kind of maze-like path that I followed to this point, but I come at this more from a position of am a big fan of history, and particularly 20th century history. Was learning a lot about um, the uh, the World Wars and the Cold War, and so I learned a lot about the Kennedys, JFK and Bobby Kennedy, and I started to take more of an interest in some of the big issues of today that young people are particularly feeling. The sense of these things falling apart and wanting things to come together and wanting to get a foothold in the future. And Bobby was the only candidate that I heard of that was coming through the right channels. He's on these podcasts and was also talking about the things that I felt were really meaningful and purposeful. And he's the first person that I've seen in my life that has made me think differently about politics, because politics for me has never been a noble enterprise. It has been ugly and Game of Thrones like, and everyone looks like a creature to me, and everybody goes through this gauntlet to be president or whatever, and says whatever they need to say and then doesn't do any of it. So, he's the first person to make me think otherwise.
I think, piggybacking off of that, parts of that, I would say, I think I was first drawn to him for his the sentiment, which really resonated with me, that young people today in this country don't believe the American dream is applicable to them anymore. And I certainly felt that sort of that angst and that dread about the future and about the decline of this country. And no candidate had really verbalized that before, at least not that I had heard in such a comprehensive way. And this is when I first discovered Bobby was in the midst of like President Biden's sort of "don't worry, be happy," economic programming, and and I just lived through the Trump administration and the fallout from the 2020 election, and I was more dreadful than I'd ever been, and Kennedy was just absolutely such a breath of fresh air and the most hope I had felt for the future in a long time, with nearly every position here articulated. To me, his candidacy represents correcting the fundamentals of this country before we move forward. And I think that the slogan, people before party and country before politics, country before politics in particular, resonated with me so much. The idea that we have to fix some things that are fundamentally wrong with this society, with the government, before we can play the game of politics anymore. And the game of politics is destroying us. And the society, the American society is, far past its pinnacle, past its heyday, and we have to save it. And yeah, I think that was really the spirit that first captured me. And I joined Massachusetts Students for Kennedy, and then eventually this team coalesced, and I'm here, and I couldn't be more honored and excited to be devoting my time to this. I really do believe, like Patrick said, that this is a noble cause.
Just to piggyback off that too, Jacob, you know, for me, when I first had a chance to hear him speak in person, which was a couple months ago down in Austin, there was such a truth that he was willing to deliver around all the things that matter to me, right? Around chronic disease, around our personal health, but our planetary health, that it was so refreshing. It was like this injection of like, oh my God, like this is what we need. And like, where have any politicians been talking about this? So I just think that like that like truth telling is what just like got me right away. And I'm someone who started out like working on Capitol Hill as a Republican. I voted Democratic the last presidential election, and here we are, right? Like I couldn't be more excited and feel like there could not be a better time to support an independent candidate. And it's so powerful that he has the ability to attract people from both sides of the aisle, or people who have been, politically homeless a little bit. And so, that's, I think, just so important. And I think that I'm so excited working with this team that we have the ability to deliver that truth and share it with students and the public, because I have no doubt that it resonates, and it's what people need to hear. The second you talk about it with anyone else, it's like a light bulb goes off, or the moment they hear him speak, it's kind of this like inspired journey to supporting him. And I agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, there couldn't be anything more noble, and also just really fun to support.
Sweet. I guess I'll take it next. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to repeat what's already been said. These are all very true answers, and very, I think, core to everyone who comes to support the Kennedy campaign and come to work here. Everyone has the same kind of light bulb moment where they're like, hope is restored. You know what I mean? A lot of us, I think, come from a place of zero faith in not just politics, but candidates, and honestly in people. You lose a lot of faith in people when you watch our society crumble and fall around these candidates. But I think a lot what brings people here is just hope. And I think that's something that brought me here. Is a lot of people know, one of the main reason that I support Kennedy is stance on addiction and how he wishes to fight the addiction crisis. And that is the biggest issue for me. I've struggled with that a lot in my life. I know a lot of people who've struggled, know a lot of people who haven't made it out. And I don't see presidents or anyone in politics care at all until Mr. Kennedy. I mean, everyone says it, that they're going to, the war on drugs, like how did that go? Went horribly. But Mr. Kennedy has a different approach. It's not a war. It's not a fight. It's just a helping hand. That's all we need. We don't need to spend billions or millions of dollars on fighting the war on drugs, because all you're really doing is giving that to pharmaceutical companies who make it worse. So the big thing for me is Mr. Kennedy's stance on the addiction crisis, and that's what brought me here. It's like a moth to a flame. I know that I will be fighting that battle for the rest of my life, and it'd be really nice to have someone in office who's here fighting with us.
So not to piggyback off what Brody said, but I also am here for many reasons related to addiction. I've dealt with many addictive tendencies in my life, and I have a very close family member who struggled with addiction that's really impacted my life throughout my teenage years and my young adult years. That's just one of the things that I feel like one of the hurdles that Bobby had to overcome, and we watch him grapple with these hurdles as we are involved with this campaign, and see the obstacles that the opposition is throwing at him, and it's so relatable to my life, because I see so many hurdles that I personally have to overcome, and it makes me feel relatable to somebody who could be in a position of power. I feel like that my not only my voice would be heard in his administration, but he understands what I am going through along with the rest of Gen Z. And I can't say the same for the other two. I couldn't vote for either one of them in 2020 after a failed promise that President Trump made to me. And obviously, for my own moral values, I couldn't vote for President Biden either. And now we have somebody who's a very valid alternative, who has a genuine shot, and I do believe he will win the presidency. And it keeps me motivated every day to fight very hard for this campaign.
Yeah, and I just want to point out here, just like a cool little point I was thinking about, as Emma and Christian shared, they come from the right side of politics previously, like the right side, not the right side. I come from the other side, and I can't speak for Patrick or Jacob, but I know that I come from the left side. And it's really beautiful to me how we're all drawn here to this middle point, even if we might differ on some policies and in general, like general politics. We all agree that Mr. Kennedy is the best candidate, and we all come here for our different reasons. But when it comes down to it, we all kind of say the same thing, and I think that's really that's actually really cool and just such a great coming together moment for this country.
I think I love hearing about all your personal issues and the genuine reasons why he speaks up about these issues in terms of what the average American citizen goes through. And I really appreciate that, especially for a student like me, because I'm only 16 years old. I can't even vote. So I know people are like, why are you in this campaign? Why do you devote so much time to it? Because he advocates for students like me. He advocates for the upcoming generation, which I believe is one of the most important generations that would possibly most definitely make a change in our country. And I think another issue that a lot of people see with his campaign is him being independent. So what do you guys think about the two-party system and how he wants to break it, and how everyone seems totally against that, saying like he's running for independent, oh, he's not going to win. So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't want to take over for other people, but I definitely have formed opinions on this, and that the time is ripe. The stars are aligned. He's the right guy for the right moment. And it seems to me that the party establishments are like these burnt out husks, and the left and the right populists have both come out of those coalitions, have decamped. It's sort of like this unbundling that's occurred with cable packages to streaming services, or from the regular job economy to the gig economy. The same unbundling is happening with politics, and people are asking themselves, why should my views on this issue be linked and tied indefinitely to my views on this issue? And so it's really cool because you're seeing Bernie people, Trump people, Yang people, all kinds of people coming together, finding common ground and weaving a path between the extremes. I mean, the country has actually seen this before, so it's really interesting for me to hear people say this can't be done, because there are these realignments that happen like every 80 to 100 years. And in living memory, it hasn't happened, but it is happening. And FDR did this, where he basically had to thread a needle between the communists on the hard left and the fascists on the hard right. He had to pull together the populists from the left and the right into a reasonable coalition, and then he had to engage a vast sea of disengaged people. And that's what's happening right now. So
that's such an interesting connection to make. I think I hadn't even thought about that before, about this like realignment. But something you said, you were talking about like it's like the stars align. I don't know if you guys ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I really like that TV show. Like I really like that TV show. It's like the episode at the end of season 1 with like the solstice, where you're there at the solstice, and you can meet Roku, who's Avatar Aang's like ancestor. That's what it feels like. It feels like we're in this moment, and we get to reconnect with all the past generations of Americans who have fought and laid everything down for this country and for our liberty, our rights. And every generation, that tree of liberty has to be refreshed, has to be nurtured. It's that quote, it's that Jefferson quote. And I can't help but think that this is the moment and this is our moment. This is where we atone for the mistakes of our parents and our grandparents, and we don't let this cycle continue. And it's just really cool to be part of this moment where it feels like the world's in the balance. I feel like a hero, honestly. Sometimes when I think about this, it feels like we're fighting this insurmountable battle that we have to win and that we know we'll win, but we have to fight it anyway. It's so crazy to think about. And Patrick saying that just made my mind go on a tangent, but it really is something, and I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think I agree with what both of you said. I think, Patrick, yeah, you're right about the stars aligning. I've been saying that, you get people on both sides of the aisle, particularly those on the left or anyone who's opposed to Trump, saying that you cannot throw away your vote at this moment. This is existential for our democracy, and I do believe it is existential for our democracy, but not for that reason. I think that this is the moment, like you say, that the stars have aligned, that the two-party system is vulnerable, never been more vulnerable. 71% of Americans don't want a rematch between Biden and Trump. 41 or whatever it is, 42% of Americans are independents, which is now the largest contingent of voters in the country. Like you say, the stars have aligned. This is a Goldilocks moment. This is that we have to capitalize on. And I personally believe that there couldn't be a more obvious candidate than Kennedy to come along for this moment. But our job is to make people see that. And another thing I've said is, in this moment where people truly believe that this democracy is in peril, that and that this is a tumultuous time, I think that we can do one of two things. We can cower and we can run to one side and begrudgingly vote for the lesser two evils, which is what most people at this point probably think they're going to do on election day, or we can do the courageous thing, the American thing, and we can chart a new course. We can, to me, I think that the only way that history remembers us well in this time is if we do the American thing, and we don't take that path. Instead, we do something we've never done before. We haven't done since George Washington, and we elect an independent president. We overthrow the two-party system. That's the only way that we can meet this moment nobly and courageously. And that's what pushes me. I want history to read that. I want history to read that the American people did not vote out of fear. They did not cower. They voted their convictions. They changed the course of this country at this moment when everyone was so defeatist. That's what I want to see.
Amen.
I feel like this is the best possible time that I've seen in my lifetime, right? To break out of the two-party system. I feel like people choosing between only one of two candidates limits their options very clearly. It's like their primary issues aren't getting spoken to, and at the end of the day, most of the candidates in both parties have the same agenda for the issues that matter, and to keep us talking about topical issues that might not be as systemic as we'd like them to be. If we resolve certain issues that are being talked about in the media, that's excellent, depending on which side you fall on, of course. But it's not getting at the real root of why we're having these problems in the first place. For an example, I studied abroad in the Netherlands last year, and as in accordance with the nationalist movement that swept the EU, Geert Wilders won a shock vote in the Netherlands, and his far right party was supposed to take over, and it did not work out in the end, and he's resigned. But the ability to vote for the party of your choice in a parliamentary system, I think, is so powerful. Not saying that a parliamentary system is the best by any means. I think that we have a pretty good system, but it's locked right now. And people having the ability to vote for who they want to vote for with more choices, I think, has given the citizens more power in the electoral process. And now that we have, a candidate outside of that bipartisan bloc, it's very refreshing, and it makes me feel like an adult, to tell you the truth. It makes me feel powerful, and it makes me feel like I have a real say in how this country is operating.
Sorry, Emma, I know you have something to say, but I just want to say that that's just that really is the core to it. You know, like Kennedy has returned autonomy to the people. We lost our autonomy to the two-party system, but now we have a chance to get it back. So it's our job to seize that chance. I think that couldn't have been better. Couldn't have been said better, Christian. That's great.
I just want to reflect something back at you guys. Well, and then I'll talk about the two-party thing, but I think we all touched on, like, we all came to this campaign for our different reasons, and, you know, we've all been through it, and we feel this sense of purpose around this. And, you know, one thing is, like, when I hear all of you guys talk about this, and I see you guys fighting so hard, and, like, you're all just, like, so smart, you're so passionate, like, me being a little bit older than you guys, like, it's changed why I'm doing this, because I'm like, we got to do this for you guys, because what are we giving you guys, you know? And, like, it's really just, I don't know, it's so beautiful, and you guys have deepened my sense of responsibility and purpose towards this campaign. So I just wanted to say that while you guys were saying that. And then on the two-party thing, it's so interesting, because as we talk about all this, it's like what we're talking about transcends, like, party politics, right? And I think that's what's so awesome about this campaign is, like, we're just talking about issues that matter to us. It's very human. It's very straightforward. Like, you know, Democrats say, oh, you know, yeah, we're going to ruin democracy. These things are so tangential. Like, I can't relate to that kind of stuff, you know? And what's so amazing about this campaign is that it's human. And, like, I think that is the thing that just rises above any party or political belief or political system. And I hope is what will help to really unite this campaign and help us win.
If I could say one last thing,
Go
because
ahead.
I think it's really important, is a lot of efforts like this in the past, you know, have died in their infancy because they've run out of steam, or they've run out of money, or they've run out of energy. And we just dashed right past Ross Perot recently, and we're going exponential, and we're going, we're getting the network effects. We're going viral. And I don't just mean that in a superficial way. It's actually, if you're familiar with the marketing adoption curve, that thing that you probably saw in one of your college courses, you have the visionaries and the early adopters, and then you have that gap before you reach the early majority, and we're crossing that, and we're about to basically, history is going to be written in a way that this seems so obvious to our grandchildren. And this is going to basically be a new basis, like a new basis of storytelling of what people wish they had been a part of. So just like we look back at our grandparents and say, whoa, look at the things that they did. We're actually living, we're in that right now. And we're not going to recognize, I mean, it's cool that we are recognizing it right now, but a lot of people aren't recognizing that. And there's a lot of naysayers that just say, this is crazy. This can't be done. This has never happened before. They're wrong. You know, the American Revolution wasn't started by 100% of the population. It was started by, I don't know, 15%. So keep that in mind.
That's trippy to think about.
Patrick, as a recent marketing graduate, I've never heard of the marketing adoption curve, but I'd love to talk
I haven't
to you
either. I'm
after
so
the
glad
call.
I'm not the only one.
Okay, yeah, check it out. It's for things like, you know, people who adopt iPhones. Like, you know, you have the early adopters, or like Google Glasses.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah, I'm totally gonna buy those. And then you have the laggards who are like, I'm never gonna wear those in my life. So, and then everyone in the middle. So
I'm still in high school, so I don't even know what that is either.
Whoever's
So.
writing,
you'll see it now. You'll see it now.
There needs to be a graphic on the final version of this video. I'm looking at it right now, and it makes sense.
Yes.
I'm there now, but for a second I was looking at like stars. I had no idea.
Right. It has to do with people's receptiveness to a new idea, and
It's actually
very much relates to influencers. You know.
Yeah,
So
it's perfectly analogous. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, that makes sense. I should probably know that as like the marketing one of the people
Dude,
on the marketing team, but
I'm a drama major. I don't have to know that. That's
If
not my.
there's one thing that you can take from marketing, let it be that
All right,
image.
it's taken. It's
thank you,
here now,
Patrick.
and we're crossing the chasm. That's what the graphic just called it, so that's what I'm calling it. The chasm.
Kind of concluding what you all just said, I think it's really fascinating that people don't even know that RFK is running, but those who
Dude.
don't know, yeah,
That is actually one of the most annoying things ever. Like I'm out gathering signatures, and people don't know who he is. And,
yeah.
and,
How do you
and
not
all I
know
can
it's
think,
Kennedy?
all I can think is that the propaganda won. That's all I can think is
Yeah.
if people don't know he's running, quite frankly, like if you read his policies and listen to him and disagree with him, all the power in the world to you. I'm sorry we disagree. But if you don't even know who he is and you haven't listened to him talk and you disagree, that is just a failure of the American political system at that point. It's
Yeah.
not any individual's failure for not researching him, because it's happening on such a systemic level that people refuse to educate themselves on policy or politics, that it's I mean it's an epidemic, and it is destroying politics. I truly believe that is at the heart of this whole two-party craziness that's going on, is people refuse to educate themselves on the other side and to see the truth in beliefs that might not be yours. Because even if you don't agree, there is truth in every belief. People believe things for a reason. You have to be able to notice that to be able to disagree. And it's just it's so sad to me that people don't know who he is. And whenever I see people when I'm gathering signatures who say that, I'm like, dude, give me your phone. Let me pull up the website right now. Give me just
Well,
give it a
it's
watch.
a result
To
of
me- to
fatigue,
me,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the same feelings that we're feeling, that we're expressing right now. It's that people are tired of this system, and
Yeah.
we need some fresh air. And finally, we have this here, and let's go and change the world with it. I think that people. I mean, there's a reason he's done so well among Gen Z and young voters. It's because he's offering this fresh perspective that we didn't have in the system that people are fatigued with. So
Yeah.
get ready, because this is the campaign that's going to bring it to you.
I
We're
think,
we're
yeah,
we're,
to add
uh,
me, I
we're
on
going to
think
change
to
it.
both
I
of
would much
both of
prefer.
you, yeah.
I would much prefer that potential voters come in as a blank slate than come in as already having been made to believe absurd things about him, and have that sort of psychological barrier to overcome. I was fortunate enough that I had not already been predisposed to dislike him, through the mainstream media or whatever. So coming in um, and not having that, like I say, that barrier, to me is much better. So to me, that's an opportunity more than an annoyance. I would rather be able to show voters the show them directly to his statements, to his website, than have to first deconstruct their media informed view of him.
I mean, that's just such a good moment too. Like, it's so satisfying when you're talking to someone who is so clearly not educated on Mr. Kennedy, and they say something and you're like, that's not true. I can show you every source in the world right now. That's not true. You were lied to. And that moment that moment of uncertainty that they have in their like solid either DNC or RNC beliefs falters. And that's the moment where they understand that they have a choice.
Yeah, and I
Where
think
that's the moment where they gain their autonomy back and
there's
they
even like a
realize that they have a chance.
there's a video of Kennedy saying that, or it was a video of him like yelling back at someone saying like I did not say that, and he was just being accused of like saying all these things, and people just kind of like they just like to make up stuff to, I don't know,
Yeah.
just whoever they're voting for.
I mean, NBC put out something this morning. I'm going to go into our little chat here in the Students for Kennedy chats right here. NBC said something this morning, and an NBC affiliate in Raleigh, North Carolina, had a video up saying that Kennedy only got 3% of the vote. And that's total misinformation, because while that is true on that particular poll, what happened on the poll is that like it said Trump, Biden, or someone else. And so voters are kind of pigeonholed into choosing one of those, and then someone else then brings them to a separate page that has Miss Stein and Mr. Biden and not Mr. Biden and all the other third-party candidates. And it's just like, it's so clearly engineered to try to shoot Kennedy down before he can get up, like try to put his ideas away so no one else can hear him. But we break down that barrier is what we do here.
The media is really good at sidelining people. They took Howard Dean out because he made a weird noise. I mean,
It's
yeah.
crazy that Kennedy survived all of this, like the battering that he's getting from all these media sources. The fact that he is still trucking is so inspiring to me, because they've used every the Trump campaign essentially calls him a communist, saying that the farther left than Biden is what the Trump campaign likes to said, saying then the Biden campaign calls him a conspiracy theorist and a far right nut job. So what's the truth? If how is he both simultaneously? Or is there a possibility that there is a true middle ground of that he's not either, and he's actually just an enemy of both parties because he's for the United States government and the parties don't serve us? And once you point that out to people and they see that, it's another light bulb moment. It's how can he simultaneously be on the far right and far left according to both of the major policy parties and the media? It's not possible.
This is one of the cool things I think about this campaign and the people that are magnetized to it, is there's a faith that people, if you give them enough of the pieces, can start to pull things together for themselves. And I think we've all made mistakes over the last, however many years with social media, where we think that, the path to winning someone over is owning them in some debate and just like stuffing their face in it. But I think having experienced that ourselves and developing some sense of humility, I think that we recognize that sort of the power of these arguments have a weight of their own. And over the last, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, these forces of media suppression and these forces of corruption have been in strong alignment, and basically the voices that speak otherwise have been scattered across the landscape. And now the tides have turned. It's really interesting because, like, at some point, those forces for, I hate to, I'm not painting it in simple good and evil terms, but like, those darker forces, they become so sort of rigid and like this big Goliath that they're incapable of swatting this like swarm of bees or whatever this thing is that it has come together, and it becomes entangled in its own bullshit, basically. And that's kind of what's happening right now, where enough people are like, wait a second, hold up, like we can kind of work together here and take this thing down,
It's,
yeah.
it's true. And on the media side, just like as we're talking about, I think like literally the democratization of democracy, right? Like having more options. I think we're also seeing that in the media landscape, right? Like mainstream media is getting less and less popular. It's becoming less and less well read. And then in the meantime, you have this world of podcasters and independent press where people can listen to that, understand what someone is saying, and then go and make their own informed decision. So I think it's like cascading in so many different areas of society and culture, that I can't help but think that like this is something that this is a huge movement that we're part of right now.
Yeah, I think that's so important to know. And also I want to spin this around. I know here you're asking us questions. I'm going to ask you a question now. I'm just so curious. I've been talking to, we have a few high schoolers here, students with Kennedy, and I find it really fascinating how high schoolers see this, because, colleges were all supposed to be like these places of higher thought and higher learning where we all think existentially all the time. But in high school, that's not really the case. It's less about the academics and the classwork and the thinking, and more about, the typical high school stuff. But I'm just interested because high schoolers typically, they show where the tide is going, wherever wherever like the cool thing to be is where the high schoolers are. So I'm interested in what you're seeing with high schoolers in Kennedy, because there is a lot of high schoolers who support Kennedy. We have a lot of interest from that demographic. So I'm just interested in your point of view.
Yeah, so I was never really interested in, I'd say, politics. I was interested in more of like Patrick, kind of the history of the United States, and then I was more kind of directing myself towards the law group. But this year, at my school, I took a push, and I learned about the Kennedys. I learned about their assassination. I learned about all the elections we've had since America was founded, and I found some of it disgusting. I found some of it incredible, and that's when I decided to create my own nonprofit to help these candidates, these amazing candidates around Michigan, win their elections and, advocate for Michigan in the best way possible, and then eventually advocating for America in the best way possible. So that's what really led me to RFK Jr. I, someone in my class actually brought him up, and he's part of the team now. So he's part of like the general chat in our
Is
Discord.
that
So
Kirsamore?
no, his name is Henry Chive. He should be in the
Word.
national chat, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
he asked me, he was like, "So you work with a lot of people in your nonprofit. Have you ever thought about, looking at RFK Jr.? He's an incredible person." And it was it was a fellow like classmate in my class who asked me about that. So I was like, I really don't know much about him, and I should. So I looked into it. I looked into his policies. I went on his website. I saw the polls and his like exponential growth since, I don't know, since he joined the race, and I found it incredible, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I started learning about how the media was censoring him because people think he's crazy or like he's a conspiracist or I don't know. But when you really dig deep into why he wants to run for president, what his history is, what his background is, that's what really changes your perspective on everything. You can't just look at CNN and believe everything that they say, because that's one of the mainstream medias I completely disagree with. So that's kind of how I personally joined. And then with my influence on my peers and the political influence that I have on them, I decided to spread my knowledge to them, and I've made a significant growth within the Kennedy community by managing the media and using my platform and using the Kennedy platform that me and Grossmar have created to share our knowledge with everyone.
Yeah, and I just needed to ask that question to you just to highlight how much of an asset you are to this campaign. First, to make sure you know that. And second, so all the students from across the country who are currently watching this, who I don't know who you are, nice to meet you, they know that it doesn't matter. Well, because here is 16, and she's one of our youngest members, and yet here she is, not only making waves, but like dictating where those waves go. And so anyone can have an impact. It can come from anywhere. Just talking to someone in your class, that can change the world, because Henry then put here and here, and that has changed so much for us. So really there is no act of activism that isn't worth it. And there isn't anyone who supports Kennedy, it is your duty as a citizen of this country and as someone who wants to see a better future to help. Even if that help seems mundane and pointless, it helps more than you could possibly know. And that is the whole point, I think, of all of our jobs here, is to tell you that.
Yeah,
If there is one thing that we are supposed to do in our positions, it is make sure you know that you have an impact.
And I think a lot of the work that I'm doing with this campaign, with influencing the people of my age, that is making an incredible amount of impact that anyone else can make. Because with the perspective of someone younger going into politics, I think that's the most important thing that you could pitch to a campaign, that you could add to a campaign.
Yeah, you're not going to change much over at the DNC or the RNC. I can guarantee you that. As someone who's been there, as someone who's worked for the DNC specifically, you're gonna leave feeling like you did nothing.
Yeah.
Here at the Kennedy campaign, I've been here for what, a month and a half? Has it been 2 months? I don't even know. A little bit, and it feels like I finally feel like I've done something. I feel like progress has been made. And even if we lose, which we're not going to freaking lose, I swear, I promise we're not going to lose. But even if we lose, I can guarantee you that the new students who are becoming independently minded will be back. We'll be back every single cycle, and we'll be back until we liberate this country.
It's really important, and I think more people are starting to see it, This reminds me of I don't speak about parables very often, but this reminds me of the story of the drowning man who says, ships go by, and he says, no, God's going to save me. God's going to save me. And 3 or 4 ships go by. And then he eventually drowns. And at the pearly gates, he said, well, what happened? You didn't save me. And he's like, what, are you kidding me? I sent 4 ships, and like, this is kind of what we have to tell people is like all this bitching and all this like understanding of all the things that are going wrong. This is the ship, this is the raft, this is it. Like, you're looking at it, you gotta start to like wipe wipe the salt out of your eyes or something, because this is the opportunity, it's right in front of you. And I think it's really cool that we're bringing together people who acknowledge the United States and what America is, the good, the bad, and the ugly, warts and all, because we've developed this political conversation where one side says America can do no wrong, and the other side says America can do no right. And this is a group of people that says, look, we have some ugly parts of our history. We're just trying to do better. And, we're trying to live up to what people have passed on to us, the baton. So it's a cool time. It's a cool time to be alive.
Best time to be alive is right now.
Yeah, no better way to say it. I think the significance and the amount that I've changed, and with the amount that all the people involved in this campaign have changed since the last 2 or so months, I think is amazing, because there's only so much you can do. And I think without the Kennedy campaign, there would just be nothing. And I think it's so important that we have this organization, we have these people drawn together with the same beliefs and with the same reasons of supporting one candidate is so incredible to me. And I think that is a great way to end this podcast. So I thank you all so much for coming and for talking about your role and your experiences with this team. And make sure to follow our TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube under the name Students for Kennedy. That is the number 4. Thank you all so much. Bye.